What's going on? Welcome to Unapologetically Black Male, where we talk about surviving the stigmas, standards, and systems. I want to thank you for joining us today. On behalf of my co-host EJ Stewart, myself, Dwayne Pate, and our sponsor J Pope and Associates, we want to thank you for joining us today. We have a great guest on for you today. But once again, our sponsor is J Pope and Associates. So if you are in need of in the Baltimore or DMV area, you're in need of some therapeutic services, counseling, individual couples, make sure you reach out. The link will be in the show notes. But once again, thank you for joining us today. And we have a brother by the name of Van Brooks, who's going to share a little bit about himself, tell us about his background, where he's from, and a little bit about his story about what has gotten him to where he is now. So, Van, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you, and you can just kind of give us some background about you. I said you. Here we go. that Baltimore come out you real quick.
Yeah.
All right, go ahead, man. That's on you, man.
Man, look, I appreciate the opportunity of coming on and sharing my story, man. So a little bit about myself. Again, I'm Van Brooks, born and raised in West Baltimore. Family from humble beginnings. I'm the youngest of five, which is going to be important. But youngest of five and all older sisters, man. So only boy and I'm the youngest. But the story is honestly, man, like I said, humble beginnings. But being the youngest, my parents were able to afford to go to private schools.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went to private schools all my life, whereas my siblings didn't. And so literally from elementary school, I went to Father Charles, which was St. Peter's Clavier, which is up in Sandtown. And then from there, once I graduated there, I went to Loyola Blakefield out in Towson for 6 through 12. And while I was at Blakefield, I became a 3-sport athlete, and I became really good at football. I started coming into my own on the football field, and I started getting looks from different D1 colleges. And so that was the trajectory that I was on, of going to D1 and then hopefully make it to the league. One of the things my parents used to always say to me was they're sending me to school to get an education, not to play sports. They used to always say to me, what happens if you put all your eggs in one basket? You drop that basket, then you have nothing else to go for you because you haven't been planning for those things. But at the time, I was 16 years old, beginning of my junior year, and it was like, man, you see the things that I'm capable of doing on the field. You see the physique that I have, nothing's going to happen. Football is going to change my life. And it did change my life, just not in the way that I expected it, right? And so my junior year, September 25th, 2004, went in for a routine tackle up against one of our big, I won't call him a rival, but it was a big game, Georgetown Prep. Went in for, a tackle, something I've done time and time again. And my head collided with the runner's knee, and I broke my neck in 2 places. And so laying on that field, I didn't think anything of it, honestly, because up until that point, I had broken 10 bones up until that point, and just throughout my career playing sports. And so I knew something had broke, right? But for me, it's like, I'm gonna bounce back from this like I did everything else. Like, we good. Mm-hmm. My body started tingling like I was like a stinger, right? Well, we call it a stinger, but when a body part falls asleep, that tingling sensation you get.
Mm-hmm.
I did that a lot, right? I was a hitter, so I played safety. So coming in, putting the body on the line, that was nothing new. If I didn't get a stinger a game, I won balling out, right? Mm-hmm. And so that was just like my mentality. So when my body was like that, I was like, I'm good. Like I'm gonna lay here for a quick second. I'm gonna get up and back to the game. But I couldn't get up, and it felt like I was levitating, right? Mm-hmm. And so eventually I heard my mother. I saw, and then my mother was on the field. Now, the crazy story about that, with my mother being on the field. So when I first started playing football, literally my first game, we out Drill Park at the bowl,
mm-hmm.
going down out there, right? And I was playing running back. I got tackled at the bottom of the pile, and I hear my mother saying, "Get off my son, get off my son," right? When the pile getting light, man, my mother's like pulling people off me, like,
oh man,
man, listen, you can't ever do that again. Like, you can't never do that again. And so hearing her on the field was like, something's really wrong, right?
Mm-hmm.
Something's really wrong. And so They of course they go into their procedures. Can I feel this? Can I feel that? Cut my face mask off, doing all that stuff. The paramedics came, and I overheard one of the paramedics say he broke his neck. Now again, I'm young, I'm 16, naive, not really don't know nothing about the world, don't know nothing about nothing, but I think I know it all, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like when you're that age. And I said, man, this dude don't know what he's talking about because I always thought that if you broke your neck, you would die, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm like, man, I'm living. What this dude talking about? I'm talking, I just can't move at the moment. Um, got medevac down to shock trauma.
Mm-hmm.
And when I woke up, I was paralyzed from the neck down, unable to do anything for myself. Like nothing. I wasn't breathing on my own, couldn't move, couldn't talk. I could move my head side to side, but that was it. And I overheard the doctors talking to my parents. My parents' back was towards me, so they
Mm-hmm.
never knew that I had woke up. And I heard them saying he's going to be like that for the rest of his life. So start to make accommodations for him.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, as you can only imagine, hearing that, you're devastated. And all I could do is literally cry. Like that's it. 'Cause I couldn't talk.
Right.
And that's where the new journey began, man. That's where the new
Mm-hmm.
journey began. Yeah, man.
So that was a lot.
Yeah. That's why I paused there, man, because it gets deeper. It
Yeah,
gets deeper, but it gets better though. It gets better.
absolutely, and I think that's a part of the story, and that's a
Yeah,
part of the struggle. And just kind of managing through that because oftentimes you'll see people like that's you'll see somebody get injured or get paralyzed, but you don't know the story or you don't
yeah,
know you don't know the struggle that they go through in that process. All you know is that they got hurt, and you might hear a story about them, every so often down the block. But if you're not really paying attention or if you're not really focused on that person, you don't know like the day to day struggles that they have to go through just
yeah,
to kind of make it and just kind of be positive about life.
yeah, yeah, man. No, it's definitely a struggle, man. I say that was the darkest time of my life,
Mm-hmm.
like the darkest time of my life. And it honestly, it wasn't because like so physically, right? Physically, I can deal with anything. Like till this day, I've always been that way. High tolerance for pain. I
Mm-hmm.
I had the mental fortitude of literally like how I got through the hospital. A lot of times, I would tell myself I was on the beach. Like literally, I was like, man, look, you on the beach, you chilling, you're gonna bounce back. That was just me trying to take myself out of the reality of it. But man, it had gotten really bad to the point of I tried to give up,
Mm-hmm.
and that's when I truly realized how powerful your mind is, right? Because it's one
Mm-hmm.
of those things, you know how somebody anything if you put your mind to, you can achieve and this and the third. Being paralyzed, unable to move, and
Mm-hmm.
saying, "I'm done with this. I don't want to do this," and I didn't want to do it because I kept seeing the pain in my mother, right?
Gotcha.
Like that, just seeing my mother going through what she was going through, crying and the pain in her eyes of seeing her son like that was
Mm-hmm.
was devastating to me. Forget my injury. I'm going to be okay, right? Like
Right.
physically, but the mental part of it wasn't there at that moment. Um, so I tried to give up. And when I woke up, my condition was worse than what it was because I
Mm-hmm.
was making a little progress, but my condition was worse than what it was. And my dad, we had like a way of communicating without, being able to talk, and he knew it. He knew it, and
Mm-hmm.
he had his choice words for me, and he left. Stormed out the room, left, and it's crazy. I didn't find out where he went. We did another interview, and he's never talked about it. Like till this day, I
Mm-hmm.
still don't really know much about anything what he went through outside of and this helped me, and I'll share it a little later, but I'm gonna say it now, but then I'll get back to it. But I asked him, I said, how did you get through it? And he said, one day at a time. I
Mm-hmm.
did what I had to do that day to get through to tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
Tomorrow was going to be a separate, a different set of challenges, right?
Right.
So what I found out though, he went to the bathroom, and he said when he went in the bathroom was immaculate, clean, like super clean. He went
Mm-hmm.
to all the stalls and sat down and cleared his mind, closed the door. And on the back of the door, it said, a man is defeated when he loses. He's defeated when he gives up.
Mm-hmm.
He came back in the room and he said, I'm going to tell you two things. The first thing he said was, God's going to do his part. I'm going to do my part, and I need you to do yours.
Mm.
And then follow that up with that quote: "A man is defeated when he loses. He's defeated when he gives up." And for me, that literally saved my life. Literally,
Mm.
from that point moving forward, I told myself, no matter what it was going to take for me to recover, I was going to do it. And I started looking at life as the fourth quarter of a football game. Because all my life of playing sports, I always trained for the fourth quarter. Like
Mm.
I knew I would be good the first three, but I knew when in tight games, when that fourth quarter rolled around, I need to be better than everyone else.
Mm-hmm.
So saying that I was preparing for that fourth quarter was preparing me mentally for whatever was going to come my way. Like I made that commitment to myself. And at the time they told me I wouldn't be able to graduate on time in my class, none of that. I missed my entire junior year. And I set out to prove everyone wrong.
Mm.
Said I would never walk again. I said, cool, I'm gonna try to achieve that. Like I'm gonna walk again. Like all of those things. As soon as I was able to talk, I started taking classes in the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
When I came home from the hospital, I was there for 4 months. When I came home, I started taking classes that summer to make up my junior year. I started actually driving myself back to school my senior year, graduated on time with my class. The next thing was they said I wouldn't be able to go to college. I graduated from Towson University. After graduating from Towson University, I was 8 years into my injury at that point. And being an athlete at that time, I was literally going to therapy 5 days a week. Like I'm in that joint 5 days a week. My schedule was school, therapy, school, like literally. And so after doing it for so long, I became independent, got a lot back. I'm living life again, right? I'm living life again. And the weight of people constantly saying to me, why are you still going to therapy? Nothing's changing. Like you good. Like live your life. Why are you still, focusing on that?
Mm-hmm.
And one day I woke up and I was in a bad mood, man. I was like, man, I don't feel like going to therapy. I ain't going today.
Mm-hmm.
But I had my habit. It was my routine for 8 years where I'm jumping up. So long story short, I end up over there and I go in, I tell my therapist, I say, look, I want to try to walk today. And if y'all don't let me try to walk today, I'm done. Like I ain't doing this. Man,
Mm-hmm.
that was the first day I took steps on my own.
Mm-hmm.
And something else my father used to say to me is, don't quit before the miracle happens.
Mm-hmm.
Like, because you never know when it's there. Like, don't quit before the miracle happens. And I almost gave up. And that miracle happened. And since then, I've been able to walk. Now, I'm still confined to the wheelchair. It's
Mm-hmm.
still going to be a very long journey. I'm a realist, so I know what my journey is. It's
Right.
going to be long, but I did accomplish that walking again.
Mm-hmm.
I did accomplish that, and I'm going to continue to work at it till I can get off this chair. That's the ultimate goal. But accomplishing that was the hardest thing I ever had to do in life.
Mm-hmm.
Life is a cakewalk for me.
Wow.
It has its ups and downs, but nothing's ever going to be as hard as that. So yeah, man, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it just speaks to the mentality, like you said, the mind is a powerful thing, and then
Very,
when you can kind of shape your trajectory based on what you're thinking about yourself, it kind of pushes you along the way, and that's what you use to push yourself, and that's tremendous. And I want to see, like, ask, were there at any point did you like have a therapist or anything like that, or did you just kind of power through this thing like with the help of your dad and like mom and family?
man. So, and this anybody's listening, don't do this, please. Don't. I Again, being young, right?
Mm-hmm.
Young. Don't talk to a therapist because you're crazy. We don't talk to therapists.
Right.
You're crazy if you need to talk to somebody. Therapist came in my room when I was in the hospital and said to me, "Sir, I want to talk to you about this. Have you contemplated suicide?" And I
Mm-hmm.
said, "Ma'am, I'm paralyzed. Even if I wanted to, I couldn't. Get out my
Mm-hmm.
room and never come back." And she left out the room, and I've never seen one since. And the reason why I say don't do that is because I fell victim to the stigma. Don't
Mm-hmm.
talk to therapists because you're crazy. When I
Mm-hmm.
really need a therapist. And I still see how the trauma shows up in my daily life.
Mm-hmm.
Something it's still there from the way that I carry relationships, because when I was injured, literally everyone who I thought was my friend disappeared.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you that star athlete, the hood love you,
Mm-hmm.
girls love you,
Mm-hmm.
everybody love you, right? Like you that man, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when that meal ticket taken away, it's like, oh, we gone to the next person. And
Right.
that was just such a harsh reality. So going through that, I didn't talk to nobody about that, right? So that still shows up in how I have a lot of my relationships today. You get what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? Like, the it's just a lot. And so that's why I'm recommending, man, like if you're going through some traumas, talk about it. And I eventually did find my relief.
Mm-hmm.
Once I started doing speaking engagements and things like that became my therapy for me to be like, because I found that there's power in vulnerability.
Absolutely.
For me getting up there and telling somebody, hey, yes, I want to live. Yes, these are the traumas that I went through. Yes, these are the things that I still deal with due to those traumas, because I didn't talk to someone about that. Don't do what I did, right?
Mm-hmm.
That is my therapy, though. Um, and so it kind of at this point is balancing itself out. And I'm also one, like, I'm a realist, and I know my flaws, and I'm willing to face those things. So
Mm-hmm.
someone called me out on something, I'm gonna take note of it. And I'm never the one that's going to deny any of those types of things. I'm gonna check myself when I need to, right? But everyone's not like that.
Yep, that's
Yeah,
true.
yeah,
So I mean, I applaud you for even recognizing that the fact that you had. I mean, not to say you handled it wrong, but you handled it how what you were, I guess, conditioned to handle.
yeah,
Because as African American men or as the culture, it's always been taught like, oh, whatever happens in this house stays in this house.
yeah,
Don't let
yeah,
it. And if I hear about it, you're gonna get in trouble.
yeah,
So it's just kind of acknowledging that, just kind of realizing, all right, I might have handled it differently. I might have handled it, not the best way, but I understand, how it has helped shape me and encouraging people to kind of, pursue the opposite if
yeah,
needed. I mean, and then you got to understand, therapy is not for everybody.
yep,
And sometimes you got to find your own lane, like you did. You said the speaking engagements is what helped you, kind of release and being vulnerable and being transparent. So, I definitely applaud you for that.
appreciate it.
Just kind of come to that realization because, it could have been a detriment to you, and it could affect you in many more ways than it did. But you kind of turned it around and kind of use it for, to kind of be vulnerable and share your story. So,
Man,
EJ,
I mean, every time it's like, we do this and I tell, Pate, like, we talk to so many dynamic brothers. It's like it's a great thing. We keep finding or we know and we keep highlighting brothers that are really, special. And, the point of this, man, is to highlight you and what you've overcame, what you've overcome rather, the stigmas, the doubt, you know, I mean, everything that you surmised for me, I already knew. Once you said what happened to you, I already knew what was hitting for it, but mine in a much less scope. And I was gonna ask you, like, who left you in your corner, and and then what I learned in higher education research, that a lot of people don't understand is that when an athlete loses the ability to play sports for whatever reason, it's similar to mourning a death.
Mhm,
So you at a very young age, you lost the closest person you could lose that wasn't your parents, your children. You lost a part of you.
mhm,
And to persevere through that and to bounce back and to be where you are, whatever flaws or whatever you feel, unapologetically to be where you are today, you need to definitely take your hat off. Way more if you don't, what I mean, and salute yourself, because that, man, I mean, that is, it's a powerful thing, man, and definitely appreciate you for sharing because somebody needs to hear it.
absolutely, absolutely. So, I mean, you told us about your story, so and where
yeah,
you are, and it kind of all the things that you get, that you had to deal with to kind of get up to where you are now. So,
yeah,
tell us a little bit about like what it is that you're doing now, and how I know you talked about the speaking engagement, but give me a couple other things that you're kind of invested in. I know you talked about the after school program, so kind of
yeah.
shed some light on how you got into that, and what is your focus now as on the other side of it?
Yeah. So after at literally 2 days after I walked on my own, I woke up from a dream that said start a nonprofit.
Okay.
One nonprofit. That was 2012. I had just graduated from college, and what was so crazy about it was when I had that when I woke up from that dream, one of the questions I always asked was why me? Like why was I the one to get injured? Why did I have to suffer and go through the things that I was going through? And in that moment, I realized that I was being prepared for something much greater. Like football, growing up in West Baltimore, it taught me something, right? Growing up in West Baltimore and going to a private school, all boys school, predominantly white school, it taught me something. It was building me up along the way. The football. So reflecting back on it, everything that I was going through in my upbringing, everything was for a reason. Everything was for a reason. And so without any knowledge of a nonprofit, not knowing anybody who had a nonprofit, since 2012, that's all I set out. And I've been every single day learning something new about nonprofits to continue to grow my nonprofit. I started my nonprofit Safe Alternative Foundation for Education in 2012. 2013, we started with one program, a 6-week flag football program. But the whole purpose of it is to teach students the importance of having an education and a backup plan for life. And the reason why I wanted that was because when I was injured and I had nothing, I knew that there were two things that could never be taken away, no matter what my physical condition was. One was my education, one was the things that I was exposed to. As long as I had that education, I can teach somebody how to do some things. Right? The things that I was exposed to, I know these things exist. And so because I know these things exist, I can strive for those things. And so I got to just continue to educate myself on how to get to those things. Because when you go to the school, that school that I went to, you're seeing a little bit of everything, right? When you come, you're living in the hood, you're seeing everything that's there. But then when you go to other schools, when you're seeing the mansions and the big cars and the going home to doctors and lawyers and right? I had the best of both worlds, so I knew what was there. So for me, it was, well, how can I bring those resources, opportunities, and that exposure to my community? How can I teach that to my kids? How can I bring a private school education to my kids? And the reason I really wanted to do that was because I say a lot of people in my community and in communities like this are paralyzed. And they may not be paralyzed physically, but they're paralyzed mentally. So how can we unlock that? Right? And the way that you unlock that is through education, through exposure. Again, when you know something exists, you can strive for it.
Right.
And so for us, it's we connect the dots between the classroom and the real world. So how does what they're learning in the classroom apply to their life in the real world? An example quickly would be like a woodshop program. We've been running woodshop for a very long time since I started the program. Woodshop, it connects the dots between decimals, fractions, what that they're learning in the classroom. So now they can see like, oh, this is how it applies. It's teaching them a skill. It's fun. Plus, it's giving them insight into a career path that they can go, whether they go to college or not. That's something that you can go into and make really good money, right? So it's those kinds of things that we do. I just mentioned earlier before we got on, went live about my summer camp. We travel we travel everywhere, anywhere we can get to. If we have the time, we're going to try to go, because sometimes it's just the journey to getting to the location that's extremely impactful, right? We go to Eastern Shore every week. Driving over the Bay Bridge is extremely impactful for some kids who've never been out of a 10-block radius. And so it's those things that we do right now with my nonprofit.
How can people get the information to support financially, follow you guys, like before we ever get wherever we going? How can we do that?
So our website, and I encourage everyone, even if you don't donate, just go and check the website out. It's www.safealternative.org. And then on Instagram, Safe Alternative Foundation is the Instagram name. And we're a lot more active on like daily updates on Instagram. So you can see all the things that the kids are doing. But yeah, man, any support will help. And you've been to the space, so yeah.
I say I was on there on other my other side, my other business that I do, and it was a good space, and just kind of seeing like how you making a multi-year space, and just kind of hearing about the after school program, and just kind of hearing like when we were sitting there just chatting, and you was like, how can I help you? I was like, man, and you just started telling me your story, and I was like, this is perfect, just because I definitely wanted to hear this story and just kind of link in and just kind of touch bases. As a reference to the after school program, how many kids do you service, and is it specifically for that community, or are you
So we serve 20 students.
Okay.
And primarily we look for students from West Baltimore.
Gotcha.
If they are from the community, like majority of our students are from the community. We do have some students that aren't in the immediate community. They might be in some of the surrounding communities. Yeah. But we barely have openings. They fill very fast when we do. And the way our model is, we typically recruit students in the 6th grade. Okay. Because our thing is we want them to stay with us for 3 years. And we say when I say it, we're truly a family, right? We're truly a family because for us, it's the reason why we really aim to keep our kids for 3 years, because sometimes in the 6th grade, there's just some things that we just have to instill in them. But on top of just building that trust, right? In order for us to really get the best out of our kids, and this is anyone, they first have to trust you. So each kid is different. Trust, it varies. So once we get that trust and they know, like, look, we genuinely here to help, support, whatever it may be. This is a safe space, and you can come and have a conversation with us about anything. Once we get through that, then we begin to really dive into that education piece. And I want to share a story about one kid really quick. He came to me in the 6th grade, and he's actually working with me this summer.
Okay.
But he came to me in the 6th grade in the first cohort of kids. And literally, this was when I just opened this bad boy up. So I'm out here like, look, send me your kids, send me your kids, send me your kids. They're like, man, what you doing with these kids down there, man? Look, just send it to me. We're going to figure it out. Like, we're going to work. But he came to that first cohort. And so 7th grade year, I took him to Loyola. He told me he wanted to go to college there. And I was like, you can't. So he's all, you tell us we can do it. And I'm like, man, look, this is a middle and high school. So long story short, he says to me, I want to go to a private school for high school. All right, cool. Bring me straight A's 8th grade year. I'll do everything in my power to get you into a high school, a private school.
Gotcha.
He was accepted into 4. He chose Crystal Ray.
Okay.
Averaged a 4.3 GPA in the entire time there. Graduated salutatorian. He was accepted into 21 out of 23 colleges, over $600,000 in scholarship money, and he's going down to Notre Dame.
Sheesh.
Right? So, and that's just one. We have other students at Morgan. We have other students at private schools, right? And so for us, we are literally holding them to a much higher expectation than what they're typically held at. And we're there to support them along that journey. And the bonds and the relationships that we're able to form because of that, that's why we're having success, right? And I tell people all the time, give me your best kid, give me my best kid, give us a year to prepare, and I guarantee my kid will outwork and outperform your kid. Because I know that hustle and that grind that they have in them, and I'm going to pull it out of them.
That's the competitor. That's that dog. That's the dog in you there.
Oh, I'm going to get it out of
No, man, I think that model is great. The whole keep them for 3 years. And I know you might have some that might fall in and fall out, but and just kind of and staying with them for that 3 years, because it's and then the 6th grade is a very pivotal year for them when it comes to going to high school or setting themselves up for the future. So I think that's probably like the best. I think that's a great model to keep, and I applaud you for that, because getting them in that pivotal year and just kind of working with them and building that level of trust. And man, and most of the time, their circumstances, so that family environment, that structure is what they need. It's
Yep.
just about having somebody that actually say, all right, I love you, I'm here for you, I'm going to support you, and I'm going to discipline you too.
Oh, yeah.
That's what I think that's what makes the more impactful relationships in our lives when we kind of have a long lasting relationship, not just something that lasts for the season, but something that lasts for the year. So that's I definitely appreciate that model. I think it's a good model.
Man, something that's I found that is very impactful, like very impactful, is for them to see an adult and a man apologize.
Mm.
Like this just happened, and it happens. It happens at least once every cohort of students that I have. Like every year, it happens where at times I jump on somebody about something. Like I'll jump on them, like jump on, and I jumped on a kid, like I was on him, and let me find out otherwise. Yeah, right. Like
Right.
I'm on them, and so of course I talked to who I need to talk to find out what I need to find out, and they was like, nah, he won. They won him. I came back, and I publicly in front of everybody set them all down and apologized. And I told him, I said, I'm doing this publicly. I could have told him this by himself. I'm doing it publicly because I want y'all to understand that adults make mistakes as well. And adults, just because you're a child doesn't mean that an adult can't apologize to you. They've never seen, many of them have never seen that before. So it's those, don't see it. It's those kinds of things where it may seem small, but it's so impactful. The fact that they know the leader of this organization is willing to apologize when he's wrong and apologize to a kid when he's wrong. And so then seeing my staff do those types of things as well, that's when you really can build those bonds, take those to another level, because they know they can come and talk to you. And if you're wrong, you're going to check yourself and you want to apologize.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Brother Brooks, man, unapologetically, you have survived society stigmas, the standards, the systems, everything, more than the average person. What would you tell the next brother that may not be exactly like you, but needs to overcome the same thing of these societal stigmas and standards and systems? What advice would you give the next brother, whatever the situation is?
Oh man, that's that's a great question. It's a hard question, and I have so many different answers. But I think I'm going to go with as long as you're doing things with good faith, doing things in good faith, right? Doing things in good faith. Someone's always going to be upset at something, no matter what it is that you do, right? But as long as you're doing things in good faith, they're ethical, and you're trying to help people, just go with it, man. Go with it. And something that I struggle with of at times in the beginning of like, how do I fit in with these things? Like, how do I fit in? Where do I fit in? But I found that I didn't have to try to fit in. If I was myself, people were going to match my energy and were going to naturally gravitate to me. And so whatever it is that you're going through, stay true to who you are, do everything in good faith, and just keep pushing through.
Every week I get a word. Every week I get a word, because somebody's always, like they said in one of the movies, you be the hero long enough, you're gonna be the villain to somebody. Somebody gonna be mad at you for something, but you doing it with good faith, you might have to apologize, but I always get the word on here, man. The word on here. There's always somebody speaking to me.
Absolutely. Well, Van, man, I want to thank you again for just kind of sharing a few moments of your time. Just kind of share your story. Greatly appreciated. and just kind of, grateful that, we connected on that day. I'm grateful that I signed up to be to be a event at your event and just kind of meet you, because, otherwise I wouldn't have had the chance to kind of do this interview and kind of hear more of your story and what you went through. So once again, I want to applaud you and thank you for joining us today. All right.
I appreciate you. Thanks again for having me.
Thank
No
you,
problem.
brother. Thank you so much.
All right. Once again, this is Unapologetically Black Male, where we talk about surviving the stigma, standards, and systems, where we're celebrating African American men and their stories to success. Listen, you can follow us on social media. Make sure you check out this week's episode on our podcast. You can thank you to our sponsor. Thank you to our co-host, EJ. And we look forward to seeing you next week. Have a great one.
And thank you, brother. Peace.